Today, I wanted to talk about the Mutapa Empire in southern Africa, an African empire that was able to maintain its economic dominance despite foreign intrusion. It's one of the more unique moments in African history. What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and supporting this content. If you'd like access to full courses and sources, or you simply want to show your support, you may do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description box below. The Mutapa Empire, located in what is today northern Zimbabwe, created one of the greatest economic powerhouses in Africa. In the 16th century, the Mwenes of Mutapa, or the Kings of Mutapa, controlled not only the political organization of the empire, but also dominated internal and international trade. Their areas of influence also included the coastline of Mozambique. The empire of Mutapa was structured a little differently than many states across the globe. The Mwene's power and authority depended heavily on his ability to promote and control economic activities within the empire. Long-distance trade was pivotal to the development of Mutapa, and so control over that was what truly defined your status as ruler. Because of this economically driven structure, the Mwenes were not so much concerned with control of their physical territory, but they primarily concerned themselves with political and economic control. The most powerful way in which the Mwene exercised his authority was mostly through his rules and regulations over trade. Thus, trade and commerce, not territorial expansion, were the dominant modes of relationship between Mutapa and Portugal. And it's interesting how this focus led to the Mwene's position of power over Portuguese intrusion. Portugal, especially in the 16th century, took a back seat and observed Mutapa and how their trade empire operated. Portuguese interest in Mutapa was mostly economic. They saw the tremendous wealth of Mutapa, and legends started to rise about the great southern African state. Fabulous stories about the abundance of gold, silver, copper, and ivory in the Mutapa Empire were popularly advertised in Portugal, where some imagined that the empire was a biblical land of Ophir from which the Queen of Sheba procured the gold she traded with Solomon. The Portuguese expected to obtain more gold than was produced in Elmina in West Africa, and more silver than was found in the Spanish El Dorado of South America. The Portuguese believed that they could acquire this wealth by destroying the Swahili commercial dominance in southern Africa, thus opening the land of Mutapa to the Portuguese. The Mutapa Empire created a system that relieved them of some of the pressures other African kingdoms had to deal with. They allowed Portuguese officials along the coast some level of control, but the Portuguese ultimately had to pay a tax to the Mutapa crown. These officials were vetted and approved by the Mwene himself. Portuguese jurisdiction was restricted, and their stations were some distance from the capital of Mutapa. This geopolitical positioning was to the advantage of the African state, because Portuguese activity could be monitored and controlled in concentrated areas. The capital was free from direct foreign influences and intrigues, which could steer national interests away from national security. In one area known as Masapa, a designated individual known as a captain of the gates was responsible for maintaining order and peace in the market and preventing breaches of the regulations on weights, measures, and prices. He was also responsible for collecting 1/20th of every load of trade goods from all the incoming caravans on behalf of the Mutapa. He had jurisdiction over all the Portuguese in and beyond Masapa, and the right to settle disputes between the Portuguese and Africans in Masapa. Mutapa's governmental structure also ensured that officials were present at each market who controlled and traded the empire's gold, copper, iron, and ivory. They also policed and spied on activities of the Portuguese. Like mentioned before, the Mwene's most important role was slightly different from other African states. The African ruler did not simply exploit the economic activities between his people and the Portuguese for the purposes of enhancing his power and authority. His most important role in both internal and long-distance trade was the promotion and maintenance of order and justice. He was responsible for providing protection and safety for traders and market centers. He set up the laws and regulations for the extraction of mineral sources, employment, transportation, and trading activities. He provided the administrative machinery that implemented laws and settled disputes. In reality, the Mwene of Mutapa functioned as the most important public servant. The Portuguese could not really infiltrate Mwene in the traditional manner. Permission was needed to even come to the capital, and they could not bring firearms. They were also required to approach the Mwene barefooted and prostrate themselves. It seems as though the Mwene Mutapa took their trade empire very serious and were well aware that that was the foundation of their civilization. They wanted to ensure that they could see the enemy coming a mile away, and they accomplished that with great expertise. It was throughout the 15th century that the Mwenes exercised effective sovereignty, since all Portuguese attempts to take full possession of the mineral resources, inland markets, and trade routes ended in complete failure. The Portuguese neither affected the political or administrative function of the Mwene Mutapa Empire, nor did they change any of the cultural patterns of the people. The only way the might of the Mwenes was challenged was through their own doing: family disputes. Succession disputes tore the empire apart and greatly weakened it. The situation comes to a head when in the 17th century, royal claimants to the throne appealed to the Portuguese for military support, first in order to gain the throne and then in order to maintain it. It was only then that Portugal was able to influence who was on the throne of Mwene Mutapa, and that destabilized everything. It was only a matter of time that a puppet ruler would take the throne and afford the Portuguese everything they desired. This African state literally gave its power away, all in the name of royal ambition. But overall, Mwene Mutapa was a pretty impressive civilization that greatly advanced international trade and globalization in southern Africa itself. Their knowledge of geopolitical strategy and their economic prowess is something we in the diaspora can certainly learn from. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.